Passover every year. Okay. So, the ceremony includes a lot of symbols, and they're sort of summarized on the front page. Does everybody have one?
No, we don't have.
We're sharing.
We're sharing.
All right, so this is a version adapted and modified for Eastover. This is the combination of Easter and Passover. We decided 2 big meals is not good anymore. We had to eat only 1 big meal, so Easter and Passover come together, and we have Eastover. And we'll talk about all the symbols. And on the front here, we also have, we're recognizing that I modified my father's version, his name is Morris Bloom, and he modified his father's version. His name was Abraham Bloom. And Abraham said it all in Hebrew for a long time. You get hungry, I'm hungry.
You don't have from his father, or no?
No, he came from Russia. I have no idea what they did over there.
Okay.
But we sort of lost a lot of the records during the Second World War.
Gotcha.
Okay, so at this time of the year, we're celebrating both Passover and Easter in a holiday season which I like to call Eastover. And so the Jewish Passover, which is called Pesach in Hebrew, is an 8-day holiday, which reminds us of the never-ending struggle for freedom from bondage, from slavery. The Christian Easter celebration also symbolizes the triumph of freedom over bondage. The Jews celebrate freedom from the bondage of slavery, and the Christians celebrate freedom from the bondage of original sin. Passover reminds us of the victory of Moses in freeing his followers from slavery under the Egyptian Pharaoh. Easter reminds us of the victory of Jesus, who through his crucifixion and resurrection freed his followers from original sin. You'll recall that the Last Supper in the Christian religion, the Last Supper was a Passover Seder. That's what was going on. And I'm sitting enough on that. Gold. You know, right down here. He's one of my guys. You will recall that the Last Supper was a Passover Seder. Many centuries ago, Passover and Easter were always observed together on the 14th day of Nisan, the 8th month of the Jewish calendar, which is different than the English calendar. It's based both on lunar and solar cycles, where the calendar we follow is solar only. In the year 325, after the Christian era, the Christians decreed that Easter should be observed on a Sunday because the resurrection is said to have occurred on that day. So now they celebrate on the first Sunday, following the first full moon after the spring equinox. If you don't understand all that stuff, see me after class. Okay. Nevertheless, in this season, we are once again celebrating freedom together. As part of that celebration, on this day, we are performing the Passover Seder. And so, we drink wine a few times during this thing. So,
I don't have one.
we raise the glass.
Just
Our
raise your
thoughts
glass.
today include all our loved ones who are not with us. I didn't expect that. I guess you all know that my son David died about a month ago. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen, which means, blessed art thou, eternal our God, ruler of the universe, who created the fruit of the vine. Amen.
Amen.
Don't drink it all. This is just one sip. Yeah, 3 more sips to go.
Tastes delicious.
And so this is the first of the 4 traditional sips of wine that we take. Out of love, I'm talking to God now. Out of love, you gave us the Sabbath for rest and the festivals for happiness. You gave us holidays and seasons for rejoicing, as this Jewish feast of Matzah, symbolizing the season of freedom. The Passover feast is in remembrance of the Exodus, the going out of enslaved Jews from Egypt to seek freedom in Israel 34 centuries ago. On the Passover table is a special glass of wine. On the back of the table.
On a special Passover table.
You wanna
Yeah, I'll do it.
hold it or
Yeah,
something?
sure.
What happened to it? We had there's a
Yes.
new one. We have a new one for them. So that's
It's a Kiddush cup.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Okay. Okay. So this special glass of
Wine?
metal cup of wine, not a glass now, is for the invisible, immortal Elijah, the prophet. Elijah is a prophet, and he's going to send a message about the arrival of the Messiah. The Jewish people believe that just as they were rescued from Egypt on Passover Eve, so will their Messiah come at this time to bring spiritual redemption and lasting peace for humankind. Elijah the prophet will be the herald to announce the Messiah. Symbolically, the door is opened on Passover Eve in the hope of welcoming Elijah and the news of final deliverance.
Does somebody want to open the
At
door?
this point, everybody
I will.
usually hears a little story about
Jennifer.
Jennifer. You want to tell a story about Jennifer?
Yes, so your mom, when we were celebrating our very first Passover, was the person who went to open and welcome Elijah to the Passover. And when she got there and she opened the door, she said, "Well, hello, would you like to come in?" And I thought she was just joking around. But there was actually a man at the door. And we looked at each other and we said, "Elijah?"
Every year we hear that story.
Yes,
Who was it?
it was a
Okay.
neighbor. But just at that exact moment. Another time, another year, and I forgot who opened the door, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we opened the back door here, and a dove flew into the house and flew back out again. I think that was a signal, for sure. So I'll open the door for Elijah.
Not yet, not yet.
Not yet. I won't open the door.
It comes a little bit later. Okay, now we're going to do another interesting thing. This is, what is it? Let's see. Yes, in here we have 3 pieces of matzah. And a hanger on, okay. So this is the bread that the Jews made when they were leaving Egypt. And it's flat because they didn't have time to put leavening or yeast in the bread. So the yeast is what makes the bread rise. And this is flat because they left that part out. So what we do is we take the middle piece, a special piece here, and we break it in half, put one piece back, and I wrap one piece, and we call that the afikomen. It's a Greek word, afikomen. First, I'm going to wrap it up. Keep your eye on it, because the children in the family have to search for it. It's going to be hidden sometime during the ceremony. You're not going to see me do it because I have a lot of magic tricks. You guys all know about my magic tricks.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm
you
gonna
know,
fold.
now you do the magic tricks. But I'm going to do another one today. So keep your eye on that, because it's going to disappear. Real magic. And the children are going to have to search for it at the end of the Seder and bring it back to me in exchange for a little money. So you have to sell it back, because I can't finish the Seder without this piece that's about to disappear. Now, watch over here. Okay. So the broken piece of matzah is wrapped in a cloth to symbolize the bundle of food that each Jewish family hastily prepared for the great exodus from Egypt. So this represents the bundle that they carried with them. The custom has grown that the person conducting the Seder hides the wrapped piece or afikomen, and the children of the family then playfully steal it. So you're going to have to find it and steal it, and later at the end of the ceremony, at the end of the Seder, you'll see if I have any money. Did you take credit cards?
Yeah, I like credit cards.
Okay, get ready now. Mr. Elias, get ready. Okay, so, behold this bread. Look at it. It's like the bread which our Jewish forefathers ate in the land of Egypt. All who are hungry, let them come and eat. All who are alone and needy. All who are alone or needy, let them come and celebrate with us this Passover. And remember that this year, many people in the world still live in slavery. And next year, may they all be free.
Why is this night different from all the other nights?
Right on cue. Wow. After all the questions, I'll answer them.
On all the other nights we leavened. We eat leavened bread and matzah on this night. We eat only matzah. On all the other nights we eat all kinds of herbs on this night. We eat bitter herbs.
On all other nights, we eat all kinds of herbs. On this night, we eat bitter herbs. And one of the bitter herbs is moror.
On all other nights, we do not dip one food into another even once. To this night, we dip twice
We dip twice.
seriously in salt water and bitter herbs into
Horosis.
chlorosis mortar.
And
Mortar. On all the other nights, we eat either sitting up straight or reclining on this night. We all recline by leaning on a pillow.
Make believe you're reading it again so I can take a good picture of that. Hold the paper up a little bit. Don't cover your face. Excellent. Very well done, Elias.
Very well.
Good job.
Very well done. We can read the reviews in variety later. Okay, so I'm now going to answer the questions. Elias asked, why is this night different? Because we do things a little differently tonight. Well, this night is different from all other nights because this night we're celebrating the freeing of the ancient Jews from slavery. For many, maybe around 400 years, the Jews were slaves to the pharaohs, the kings of Egypt. How the Jews first came to Egypt is told in the book of Genesis, in the story of Jacob and his 11 sons who went with their families to join the 12th son, Joseph, in Egypt to secure food, to get food during a famine in Israel. So you might remember that story. The book of Exodus then describes how those Jews, the ones that went to Egypt to get food from their brother Jacob, how those Jews multiplied and prospered for many years, only to then be enslaved for many more years by new and fearful pharaohs after Joseph and all of his generation had died. One day, Moses was chosen by God, and you might know that story. That's at the burning bush. You know that story. Moses was chosen by God to free the Jews. Moses had been born in slavery, but he was secretly adopted by the Pharaoh's daughter as a baby. Now Moses went to the king of Egypt and told him he was sent by God to lead his people out of Egypt. But Pharaoh didn't believe him. And Moses said, if you don't let my people go, God will give me the power to bring all kinds of plagues upon the Egyptians. But Pharaoh still didn't believe him. So Moses caused terrible plagues to come upon the Egyptians. In the traditional Passover celebration, the story of the 10 plagues inflicted upon the Egyptians is accompanied by the symbolic spilling of wine. I'm not going to go through all of that, but the symbolic gesture expresses our sorrow and compassion at the suffering of others, even as we celebrate the liberation of Jews from bondage. So normally I would talk about 10 different plagues, blood and vermin and lice and turning the water into wine and frogs. Maybe you guys know all those plagues. But each time I mention it, there's a little dish and we say frogs and vermin and lice. Now that's a big story. That doesn't take more time. But we want to eat. But basically, the idea of spilling the wine is, again, symbolic about showing that we are not happy about hurting people. So the first plague was that of blood. All the water in the land of Egypt was turned to blood, so that the people had no water to drink. And when Pharaoh saw this, he told Moses he would let the people go if Moses would turn the blood back to water. And when Moses did so, Pharaoh broke his promise and still refused to let the Jews out of Egypt. So one after another, Moses brought on more plagues. He filled the land with frogs, vermin, flies, cattle disease, boils, hail, locusts, and even total darkness. And each time one of these plagues came to Egypt, Pharaoh promised to let the Jews leave if Moses would remove it. And each time, Pharaoh broke his promise. So God told Moses to bring a 10th plague. At midnight, on the night that corresponds to the first night of Passover, all the firstborn males of the Egyptians were to die. But the Jews who lived among the Egyptians were given a special mark to place on their doors so that the angel of death would pass over their houses and spare their firstborn. Not a very great story here. Not pleasant. So on that night, Pharaoh's own son was slain. And this finally broke the will of Pharaoh, who called for Moses and told him to take his people and leave Egypt at once. Moses and his people left in such a hurry that they had no time to prepare bread in the usual way for their journey. Where are you going? Okay, so the people are keeping their eye on the masa here. Okay, Moses and his people left in such a hurry, they had no time to prepare bread in the usual way for their journey, so they simply mixed flour with water and baked it and had to take along with them. But if you leave out the yeast or the leavening, it stays flat. It doesn't rise into a nice soft roll. And here, finally, Elias, we find the answer to your first question. Here it comes. This day, when the angel of death passed over the houses of the Jews, became a day of festivity. It is symbolized and remembered each year by the eating of unleavened bread or matzah. Why do we eat matzah on this day? That's why we're celebrating the kind of food that the Jews took with them. In answer to your second question, ready for this one? Second question. On all other nights, we may eat herbs of any species, but on this night we eat only bitter herbs to remind us that the ancient Jews suffered the bitterness of slavery. And on that plate back behind me, there are all these symbolic things. There's bitter herbs and the other stuff I'm about to talk about. Now, answering your third question, on all other nights we do not dip even once. It's dipping this vegetable into some kind of tasty liquid. But on this night we dip twice to remind us that we are free and can enjoy the luxuries of eating as free people did in ancient times. So one of the dippings we do, we take parsley and we dip it in salt water. Because parsley is sweet and salt water is like tears, and everything's a symbol of this ceremony. The second thing we dip is the haroshas, which is what looks like the mortar or the cement that the slaves needed to build the pyramids in Egypt. So it looks like mortar, but it tastes good. Finally, in answer to your fourth question, on all other nights we eat sitting upright or reclining. But on this night we eat in a reclining position, which may gird, but not a good idea to lie down when you're eating. And we symbolize the reclining position by having a pillow that we just lay on. So this means we're like the big people, okay? It was an Oriental custom for all free people to be able to recline on pillows and lounges when they are having their meals. So doing so on Passover night symbolizes the fact that the Jews are no longer slaves. They're able to recline the way free people should. So as you have gathered by this time, the Passover Seder includes many symbols, things that represent something else. For example, the candles. Candle flames are an ancient symbol for human life and for the light of the Hebrew scriptures known as the Torah. Candlelight also denotes the glow of freedom that illuminates human life. Now, if you want to get the platter.
Yes, of course.
I want the salt water.
So this is a platter that has a little bit of a bunch of symbols. Horatius, which I mentioned earlier, looks like the mortar and the stuff that was used to build the pyramids by the slaves. In the middle, is that, oh, that's the wine. Oh no, it is the salt water here.
Salt water. You have some on the table too.
There's a couple of salt water for dipping
The parsley or the eggs.
parsley. You dip it and it tastes pretty good, you know. 5 more symbols of various foods and this other dish. This is
Horseradish.
a bitter herb. This is horseradish.
And you have some
And if you want to taste something bitter, I guess horseradish, that bitter stuff that we put on gefilte fish. And there's the parsley, and there's the salt water, and there's the Horatius, which is the cement that it's supposed to represent. It's a symbol of the cement that the slaves had to lug and carry and put on the pyramids. This is, how can we talk about this? Yeah. This is called Zeroa. The Hebrew word is Zeroa. And it represents the shank bone of the Paschal lamb. The shank is your shin. Bone in there. There's a long, thin bone. And this would be a section of it. And it reminds us of the Paschal lamb. That was a sacrificial lamb. They killed as a sacrifice. And it was eaten during the Passover celebration in ancient Judaism. The lamb was a sacred idol. The reason they chose the lamb is because it was a sacred idol to the Egyptians. So, despite the Egyptians' religious beliefs, the ancient Jews used to sacrifice the lamb to show that they were finally free from the Egyptian idol worship. And it was the blood of the Paschal lamb that was actually used to mark the doorposts of the Jewish homes so that the angel of death would pass over them. The roasted egg, known as betzah, the Hebrew word betzah.
And we have some
And the
here too.
roasted egg there's a little bit of a story here. If you remember, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem was destroyed. And so the egg is a symbol of the animal specially prepared and roasted for eating at the ancient Seder meal on this night. It is, I think I have to straighten out the story because I'm not getting it exactly. But anyway, the egg is also a Jewish symbol of both eternal life and of mourning. Here it symbolizes mourning for the destruction of the ancient Hebrew temple where the sacrifices were brought. There's a tradition that if a girl of marriageable age, you got 2 girls down there.
Neither of them.
If a girl of marriageable age, but they've got a few years, they're gonna have to come to this Seder a few more times before this one works out. If the girl of marriageable age eats the roasted egg after the Seder is over, she'll be married by the next Passover. It's a tradition. You don't have to do it. No rush. Okay, moreover, the bitter herbs, that piece of horseradish, reminds us of the embittered existence and cruel hardships of slavery in Egypt, which our Jewish ancestors were compelled to endure. Harocious, the mixture of apples and nuts and cinnamon and wine, symbolized the mortar and the bricks made by the slaves under the lash of Pharaoh's cruel taskmasters when they were building the Egyptian cities as well as the pyramids. It tastes delicious. Its sweetness is a symbol of God's kindness, which made even the grueling toil of slavery bearable. Later on, we pass it around if you want. You could try it. Don't
Yes.
miss it, right there. Karpas, or the parsley, or some other green vegetable, symbolizes the coming of spring and the rich bounties of the earth, to remind us that there's still hope for the victory of freedom in the world. Salt water is a symbol of the tears shed in slavery, and traditionally the karpas, or the parsley, is dipped in the dish of salt water and is eaten because free people were able to dip in olden times as part of their leisurely dining. It also expresses the thought that even in times of deepest suffering, our hopes must remain forever green. Stay hopeful. I don't know when you go check the door. Maybe that was the right spot.
It was.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, did you check the door? Anybody out there?
I did.
You sure? Okay. So we now conclude our short celebration of freedom with another toast and a prayer. Wine is a symbol of joy, yet as represented by the earliest spilling of the wine with the plagues, the joy of the Jewish people on this holiday is lessened by the fact that redemption of their ancestors could not be brought without the suffering inflicted upon the Egyptians. Jewish tradition teaches us that we must have compassion even for our enemies. So with that in mind, and on this special day of celebrating freedom from tyranny and slavery, our thoughts go to the millions of people in the world who right now are struggling against tyranny, and to those who may have even given up that struggle. Our responsibilities as free people compel us to work for their redemption as well. May those less fortunate than we all soon know the sweet taste of freedom. In closing this Seder, our final prayer is that all of us may come together again next year to celebrate this holiday, and that we may celebrate in a world where all people are free. Amen.
Amen.
Good stuff. Okay, now we can eat.
All right, so the first thing is